Okay, good evening, everyone. Happy to see a lot of faces here. Let's say I'm a little bit tired because there was, let's say, a fuck up with one of our applications. So sorry about that. I'm a little bit sweaty, you know. Okay, who am I? I'm Pavel Štrobl, and I am a DevOps engineer at Prussia Research, and my main focus is at SRE and observability, which is something I like to do in my free time. And so you can imagine how you can embrace OpenTelemetry and observability in real life. For example, you can observe fermentation process of beer with Prometheus and Grafana. But enough chit chat, and let's go to OpenTelemetry. Okay, first things first. What is OpenTelemetry? Yeah. What is OpenTelemetry? We'll start with OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is a vendor agnostic framework that allows you usage of your data, observability data from your applications through metrics, logs, and traces. Most of them popular. Mostly they are popular, known for traces, but OpenTelemetry is usable for all of these. It's collection of APIs, SDKs for our applications, collection of tools for receiving, exporting observability data. And the last but not least, also contains auto instrumentation libraries for your applications if you are working on the ops side and not dev. However, you need to realize OpenTelemetry is not storage. It's just framework. You need still use some kind of storage backend like Prometheus, Elasticsearch, Grafana Loki, or something like that. And it depends on what you want to scrape. Okay, state at Prussia Research. Well, let's say we use OpenTelemetry right now, but it's not that we would like to use that in our stack. We use it for engines, observability extension, and for traces, for tracing CI/CD, mostly CI. You can create, of course, pipelines, which we also do. And our pipeline for now is to have Prometheus exporter for our application and, well, for our tools, application does do not have our application metrics, unfortunately. We would like to have them, but it is what it is. So our tools exports Prometheus metrics. We have Prometheus. Prometheus scrapes these metrics and saves them. For Loki, we have Promtail. Promtail scrapes std out, std error, and push them to Loki and saves them there. And for traces, we have something, I guess chaos, I will call it. It's because we have Grafana Tempo with Zipkin, that is used as protocol. We use Sentry, and other teams just don't care. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I started with OpenTelemetry, because I heard it's about tracing, and yeah, it is also about tracing. And after learning basics, I have pretty good experience. We use Kubernetes, and my obvious choice was OpenTelemetry operator, but something it's better than it looks. Something sometimes not. And when I tried to put OpenTelemetry between Promtail and Loki, so I can scrape our metrics and modify them in OpenTelemetry collector with inside collector and push them to Loki, then I deployed correct CRD, and it just didn't create it as the correct operator, and I needed to deploy it manually with LChart, and for that time I scraped use of operator, because it just didn't work. That's a kind of issue with OpenTelemetry, because OpenTelemetry is kind of stable, kind of not, because it depends on what you use. Collector is mostly use built of multiple parts, like a receiver that receives the data, processors, and exporters that export data. And if you use correct ones, then you have absolutely stable solution and no problem with that. But if you want to, for example, export data metrics in Prometheus format, then export for Prometheus is in alpha stage, and good luck with that. And if you use Prometheus, then you can absolutely should use OpenTelemetry and push metrics straight to the Prometheus because it supports out of order ingestion. But okay, it's not only about OpenTelemetry collector. As I said, I mentioned ops site. There is also dev site, because if you open a website of OpenTelemetry, there are two buttons, dev, ops, and you should choose by your thinking what is best for you. But I'm more like ops guy, and I'm not a dev side guy, so I will try to explain that in the best way I can, but please don't be that harsh to me. Okay, you are a developer, you want tracing if you are not in YOLO mode and push to master straight. And most developed part of OpenTelemetry is tracing. Yeah, because back in the day, OpenMetrics and OpenCensus was merged into OpenTelemetry, and OpenTelemetry is now incubating project of CNCF. Before it was OpenMetric, Open Tracing. Thanks. And it makes sense that you can make multiple choices while approaching OpenTelemetry. Okay. There are multiple stages. Application is this one. This is collector. This is exporter. This is telemetry backend. Okay, let's start with application. If you are a dev, then probably you can instrument your code with libraries. Libraries are for multiple languages: C++, Java, C#, a lot of known languages, also Python, and PHP, of course. I don't want to read a list of supported languages here. Sorry about that. And for every language, there is some kind of documentations you can use, and it's pretty great, at least from my side. But I'm not a developer, as I said. It's, I guess, okay. At least it's something. It's better than nothing. But as I said, even stage of these libraries are in alpha stage for metrics, and then for tracing is stable. Then, for example, Java, C++, tracing, metrics, and logs, all of them are in stable stage, which is kind of neat. Okay, how did it make sense? I'll move to ops side. I'm much comfortable there. Okay, from this perspective, we have application. It's kind of black box. We know probably it's like Python Django application, but that's everything we know. Okay, we need to instrument this application. OpenTelemetry operator contains also onto instrumentation CRD support, and you can deploy auto instrumentation container to your application. It will work like sidecar container, but if you are not running Kubernetes 128, then it's not sidecar, and you need to upgrade. Okay, and you probably run multiple backends for telemetry data, etc. You want to integrate OpenTelemetry workers. So what you can do? Okay, first things first, let's start with application. We have Python Django application. We deploy CRD with auto instrumentation for these apps, correct namespace, etc., etc. And everything works nice. Maybe. In our case, didn't. We have collision with one library. That's something that was expected, honestly. And if you use, for example, Node.js, you will have a lot of issues with this. Okay, but let's say it's working. Then you can export these telemetry data to collector. Nice, we have data in collector, and we want to process them. How? It depends. You can batch them, you can change labels, you can drop data, you can drop labels. There's a lot of functions that you can use. For example, one of our teams use Sentry like with 100% of sample rate, and it absolutely killed Sentry. So we needed to update their code. So they actually didn't send 100% what one, but you can use OpenTelemetry and use it as limiter, for example, for Sentry. It also supports Sentry. But issue I forgot about auto instrumentation is that you don't have much control about your instrumenting. Sorry, I need to move here. Okay, we process data. Let's look at the exporter. We can export like everywhere almost today. Use Prometheus, logical choice for us, Prometheus, or OpenTelemetry for Prometheus. If you use Elasticsearch, you can use Elasticsearch. If you use OpenSearch, it should be same like Elasticsearch, I guess. If you use, I don't know, Jaeger, you can use Jaeger for backend storage. It should just work. Yeah, sure. That's the issue. But yeah, mostly it works. If you use exporters in at least beta stage, it works pretty great. As I said, it doesn't matter where you data put, but yeah. Okay, and one thing that is missing here is connector, because you can connect your pipeline from processor to another pipeline, and that's connector. It should be like here, but honestly, that's not the thing we needed to use. But if you want connector, you can use connector. Yes. I forgot about something. Prometheus by default pull model. OpenTelemetry by default push in pull model. You can use both. Why not? Even though OpenTelemetry is CNCF incubating project, you don't need to use Kubernetes for OpenTelemetry. You can easily create Docker Compose file, Docker Compose app, and it should just work, even with, outside of Kubernetes. OpenTelemetry at Prusa Research. Okay, as I said, we use Nginx. We use Nginx in Kubernetes. We use ingress controller for Nginx. And you can actually enable OpenTelemetry support in Helm chart easily, no problem. I enabled OpenTelemetry support, configure it, just works. Well, that's a really nice experience. And other team use Tempo as backend, Grafana Tempo as backend. You can use OpenTelemetry there. Okay, again, amazing. And if you use OpenTelemetry, you can easily put context into that telemetry data. That's the issue we have because we use Zipkin, we use Prometheus, we use Promtail. We don't have context of these data, and that's the big issue we actually use. We actually have. Okay, what about the future of OpenTelemetry? In my honest opinion, and humble of course, OpenTelemetry will have a really bright future because it's incubating and it's second most popular in terms of commits, if I remember correctly, project of CNCF. You can guess which is first. No, it's Kubernetes. Kubernetes is most popular, OpenTelemetry is second. I guess it happened last year. It got much popular than it was before, and it's great for OpenTelemetry community. And if you look at big players at the telemetry market, like Grafana or Honeycomb, Datadog, yes, thank you. Datadog, they all use at least somewhere OpenTelemetry. So it's probably getting somewhere, not nowhere. And you can instrument whatever you want, your code, your CI pipelines, which we heard from next speakers, and that's actually what I'm looking for. And that's all, guys. Now it's time for your questions, and I guess it's time for Zdeněk.
So, any question? Okay.
So my question is, does developers like it? Do they use it, or they don't just care and you just have it there?
Yes. Well, honestly, our developers are that type of guys that don't just care. Mostly, not all of them, but mostly they don't care. So we are trying to push them neatly to use something that makes sense, that is useful, and for not only for us but also for them with debugging.
So following on that, if you have like some use cases, how are you selling it to developers? Like why they should use it, or what value would they bring it to them?
Mostly to context, because they have traces, for example, but they don't have context of these traces because they don't know what happened. Yeah, nice trace. Yeah, thanks, I guess.
Yay, so I have multiple questions. Sorry about that. So first one would be, so the state of actual like the auto instrumentation on the agent or near the application, is it something that's actually usable on its own, or does it always like require to actually like use the SDK or something like that?
It depends because it's yeah, it depends. Like always, it depends. If it depends on your application. If your application use some, let's say you have a microservice application, then you have multiple languages in your namespace, like Python, Django, for example, web application, but you use some Rust application in that namespace too. You can't use, of course, auto instrumentation for Python Django, but you need to exclude Rust application, and then I don't know if there is auto instrumentation for Rust, honestly. But yeah, if you use some executive language, then you need. Okay, I heard it's in alpha stage, so yeah, you can try that, but I shouldn't do that. Okay, even normal auto instrumentation, not auto instrumentation. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Okay.
I mean, I could stand there, but whatever. So second question. So if I understand OpenTelemetry correctly, the whole CNCF project, that means it's basically a set of specifications for the exposure formats, for the transport protocols used. It's also the implementation of like example exporters and collectors and forwarders, or does that not like have like example? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it's discussion right now. I know exporter is a word that is misleading a little bit, because if you have exporter in Prometheus, it's something different in exporter in here, and it's not example, because if you have operator, you have receiver, processor, and exporter. That is all these three components makes operator works. You don't need to actually use processor. You can just receive and export data. But you can actually create your own exporter, your own receiver. You have some specific format of data you want to ingest them with OpenTelemetry collector. You can. Probably there is some example of how we can look, but as I said, I'm more like ops guy, not dev, so I didn't look at that in that way. And yes, it's a specification of protocol, OTLP. You probably heard that. It works with gRPC of 4317 port and 1318 port for HTTP. So you don't actually don't need to use gRPC. For example, we use HTTP in our CI, but in cluster we use gRPC. And hope I answered the question. Yeah. Okay.
That means that if I will be looking for the specification, I will eventually find something like proto file specifying the exchange format. Awesome. Is there a dedicated format for like batch writes, or is that like the same thing? Okay. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. And then another question. Okay. It's one question or more?
Okay, the last one.
What do you think is the time investment? Like, if you want to implement tracing from scratch, how do you get people on board? Because that's what we had issue with. That we were like, okay, we would like to implement tracing, but we need to get the devs on board. And there was a question like that. But yeah, I would say mostly time investment, or how would you plan it in phases and do that transition?
Honestly, I can talk about the dev side because I'm more an ops guy, as I said again. But it didn't look that harsh. But I can give you an estimate. For ops side, it's pretty straightforward. In Kubernetes, you deploy operator, deploy CRD, it works. And configuration is pretty simple. If you do something like I know processing, multiple processing, multiple pipelines, yeah, then it can take time. But even without any knowledge about OpenTelemetry, I created operator collector in like 2 days, and I didn't know anything about OpenTelemetry. Of course.
I can answer for that dev. If you are a Java developer, you add one line to your start and you are done. Yeah, that's so simple. For example, our Java teams just adding and auto instrumentation. If you have Spring and all that works, and they have much more better outcomes than previews with manual logging and some other things. Yeah. If you are a Rust developer, you need everything make by yourself usually. I will show you in my talk about Go, how that works and how you can go around in some way. But for example, that application that I will show, it's usually 1 hour or something. It's not big difference that you use a metrics library for Prometheus or something else. What is a deep investment from developer side is if you have big application, and for example in my previous job in product board, we use the two different telemetries, Datadog and Honeycomb, together for some special reason, for sampling and some others. And you usually you have to go through the traces and you find the places where you don't have enough information, and you need go to that part of code and make spans manually. Yeah. And by default, the Datadog or some other libraries make instrumentation very easy. There are instrumentation for database drivers, for frameworks, others that's very easy to set up. You can be on board very fast, but that things that you need go to specific parts and you have some issues there, you need to create own spans for make more visibility and more useful outcomes from that traces. That's another question, and it's not too much to dev, it's more SRE work than developers. I don't know too much developers they are into this, but yeah, that works. And I think if you compare with anything else, adding logs, adding metrics is very similar. It's not that the traces are 100% more work than adding metrics or adding logs. It's similar, But if you are familiar with developers, they are not care about logging or metrics too much too. That's the same issue. Yeah.
So, do you want? No? No. So, thanks. Okay, last one, please.
So you mentioned that it's possible to integrate Sentry with OpenTelemetry. So what does it mean? Is it that the client is Sentry and it is possible to send events to the tempo, or how does it work?
I didn't try that, but you can. There is a receiver for Sentry and exporter for Sentry. But if you put something into OpenTelemetry collector, you can theoretically put it anywhere. So yeah, but I'm not that sure, honestly. Yeah, sure. For backend, of course.
So, thank you, Pavel.